Admiral Kethmore stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking at the star charts with cold satisfaction. The blue dot on the screen showed his next target, a small planet called Earth in a system the locals named Sol. It would be his 165th victory. His pale, elongated fingers traced the route his fleet had taken across the galaxy. Each red mark represented a world that had fallen before the might of the Valdorian Empire. Some had fought. Most had surrendered when they saw his ships blot out their skies. All had failed. "Admiral," said his second-in-command, Commander Vextal, "we are approaching the outer edge of the target system. Our scouts report the inhabitants are still using primitive chemical rockets and simple nuclear weapons." Kethamore's lipless mouth curved into what passed for a smile among his species. How quaint, another backward world thinking their crude weapons can protect them. He turned to face the bridge crew. "How many ships does intelligence estimate?" "They have? Perhaps 200 vessels, sir. Most appear to be converted cargo ships with basic weapons. Their largest warship is smaller than our scout fighters." The Valdorian admiral laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 200 toys against 500 capital ships. This will be over before it begins." He paused, considering. "In fact, this is almost insulting. Send only 50 ships for the initial attack. Save the rest for worlds that might actually provide some entertainment." Through the massive viewport, Kethmore could see his fleet stretching into the darkness. Each ship was a kilometer long, armed with weapons that could crack planets. The humans had no idea what was coming for them. Far below in the depths of space, hidden among the asteroids and debris of the outer solar system, other eyes watched the approaching fleet. Admiral Kang Teho floated in the command center of his flagship, studying the enemy formation through advanced sensors the Valdorians had not detected. "Count confirmed," reported his intelligence officer, Lieutenant Colonel Osiri. 500 ships, just as our deep space monitors predicted. They're maintaining standard Imperial formation, arrogant and predictable. Kang was a thin man with graying hair and sharp eyes that had seen too many battles. Unlike the Valdorians, he knew exactly what he was facing. Earth's hidden observation posts had been watching the Empire's advance for months, learning their tactics, studying their weaknesses. "Any changes to their approach?" Kang asked. "The lead elements are splitting off. Looks like 50 ships heading for Earth directly. The main fleet is holding position at the system's edge." Kang nodded grimly. "They're not even taking us seriously." "Good. Dr. Park, are your weapons ready?" Dr. Park Sujin looked up from her instruments. She was young for such a critical role, barely 30, but her quantum physics research had given humanity its only chance. "The resonance weapons are charged and calibrated. We'll only get one chance with them. The enemy will adapt after the first use." "One chance is all we need," Kang said. He activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Kang. Today, we face an enemy that has never known defeat. They have crushed 164 worlds, enslaved billions, and believe themselves unstoppable. Throughout the solar system, on ships hiding behind planets and moons, in underground bunkers on Earth, and in secret bases throughout the asteroid belt, humans listen to their admiral's words. They see us as primitives," Kang continued. "They think our weapons are toys and our ships are scrap metal. They have sent only 50 vessels to conquer our world because they believe we are not worth their full attention. Today, we will teach them the price of underestimating humanity." On Earth's surface, President Lee Hee-jin stood in the underground command center beneath what used to be Seoul. The city above was being evacuated, but she had chosen to remain. If humanity was going to make its last stand, their leader would stand with them. "Madam President," said her military aide, "the enemy fleet will reach Earth orbit in 6 hours. Should we attempt to contact them?" Lee's face was calm, but her hands were clenched into fists. "Yes. Open a channel. Let's see what they have to say." The communication came through exactly as expected. Admiral Kethmore appeared on the screen, his alien features twisted with contempt. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship gleamed with advanced technology. "Primitive humans," Kethmore began, his voice translated by their computers. "I am Admiral Kethmore of the Valdorian Empire. Your World has been selected for incorporation into our domain. You have 24 of your hours to surrender unconditionally. Comply and you will become useful slaves. Resist and you will be eliminated. President Lee stepped forward. I am Lee Hai-jin, leader of the human race. We have a message for you as well. Kethmore seemed amused by her defiance. Speak quickly, Primitive. My patience is limited. Lee looked directly into the camera, knowing her words would be heard not just by the alien admiral, but by every human fighting for survival. Come and take it. The transmission ended. Kethmore stared at the blank screen for a moment, then began laughing. Did you hear that, Commander Vextal? The Primitive actually believes she can resist us. Shall I order the bombardment to begin immediately, sir? No, Kethmore said, settling back into his command chair. Let them have their 24 hours. It amuses me to watch them scurry about in panic. Besides, I want to see what pathetic defenses they try to mount. But humanity was not panicking. As the Valdorian advance fleet moved into the inner system, Earth's defenders put the final touches on a plan that had been months in preparation. Colonel Im Young-woo supervised the activation of hidden weapon platforms throughout the asteroid belt. Each one was disguised as space debris, invisible to enemy sensors until activated. Captain Nam Dong-hyuk checked his squadron of modified civilian ships. What looked like cargo haulers and mining vessels were actually heavily armed warships, their true nature hidden beneath false hulls and sensor scramblers. Remember, Nam told his pilots, we get one surprise attack. Make it count. Target their command ships first. Cut off their coordination. In the outer system, engineer Yu Min-seo made final adjustments to humanity's most ambitious project. The entire solar system had been turned into a weapon. Every asteroid, every chunk of space, debris, every abandoned satellite had been rigged with engines, explosives, or both. When the time came, the Valdorians would find themselves trapped in a maze of death. As the enemy fleet drew closer, Commander Shin Ji-hoon prepared his fighter squadrons. The pilots were nervous, but determined. They had trained for this moment, their entire lives, even before they knew what they were training for. Listen up, Shin told them. These aliens think they know how space combat works. They've fought the same way for thousands of years. Big ships, heavy armor, predictable tactics. They've never faced anyone like us. Dr. Ryu Jae-sung completed his analysis of intercepted Valdorian communications. Their command structure is rigid, he reported to Admiral Kang. Everything flows through their flagship. If we can disrupt their coordination, they'll be fighting blind, Kang finished. Good work, Doctor. How long until the quantum cascade bombs are ready? Dr. Park's team is loading them now. But Admiral, once we use them, we can't go back. The galaxy will know that Earth has weapons that can destroy entire fleets. Kang looked out at the approaching enemy ships. Then let's make sure the galaxy knows that Earth is not to be trifled with. The Valdorian advance fleet reached Earth's outer defenses exactly on schedule. Admiral Kethmore observed from his flagship as his ships took up bombardment positions around the blue planet. Sensors detect no significant defensive positions, reported his tactical officer. A few orbital stations, some primitive satellites. Nothing that poses a threat. Very well, Kethmore said. Begin the demonstration bombardment. Target their largest cities. Show them what happens to those who defy the Empire. But as the Valdorian ships powered up their weapons, space around them began to change. What had seemed like empty void suddenly erupted with energy signatures. Hidden ships decloaked, revealing Earth's true defensive fleet. Asteroids that had drifted silently for months ignited their engines and accelerated toward the enemy formation. What is this? Kethmore demanded, staring at his sensors in confusion. Where did all these ships come from? The answer came in the form of quantum torpedoes slamming into his fleet. Dr. Park's experimental weapons tore through Valdorian shields as if they were paper. Ships that had seemed invincible moments before exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Captain Nam led his disguised warships in a devastating surprise attack, targeting the enemy command vessels. His cargo ships revealed hidden weapon arrays pouring destruction into the confused Valdorian formation. Impossible, Kethmore shouted as his screens showed ship after ship being destroyed. These primitives don't have this kind of technology, but they did. And more importantly, they had something the Valdorians had never encountered in their long history of conquest: the absolute refusal to surrender. Admiral Kang watched the first engagement unfold from his hidden command ship. The surprise attack was working better than they had dared hope. In the first 10 minutes of combat, 15 Valdorian ships had been destroyed with minimal human losses. "All units, continue the attack," Kang ordered. "Remember, we're not trying to drive them off. We're going to dester." The Valdorian main fleet moved through space like a dark tide of destruction. Admiral Kethmore stood on his bridge, his alien features twisted with rage as he watched the tactical displays. The humans had somehow destroyed 15 of his advance ships, but that would not happen again. "Full fleet formation," Kethmore commanded. "I want every ship ready for immediate bombardment the moment we reach Earth orbit. These primitives will learn the price of defying the Empire." Commander Vextal studied the sensor readings with growing concern. "Sir, our scouts report unusual energy readings throughout the system. The humans appear to have more ships than intelligence estimated." "It doesn't matter," Kethmore snarled. "They could have 1,000 ships and it would still be insufficient. Our armor is impenetrable, our weapons unstoppable. Whatever tricks they used in the first engagement will not work twice." But Admiral Kang had no intention of using the same tricks twice. Hidden throughout the solar system, human forces prepared for the next phase of their desperate plan. On the bridge of his flagship, Kang reviewed the tactical situation with his senior officers. "The enemy fleet will reach Mars orbit in 4 hours, reported Lieutenant Colonel O. Seiri. "They're maintaining tight formation, exactly as predicted." Dr. Sao. Park Soo-jin checked her instruments one more time. "The quantum resonance weapons performed better than expected in the first engagement. But Admiral, they'll adapt their shields quickly. We need to hit them with everything we have before they figure out our frequency." Kang nodded. "Dr. Ryu, what about their communications?" Dr. Ryu Jae-sung pulled up his analysis. "We've been monitoring their transmissions. Their command structure is even more rigid than we thought. Everything depends on orders from the flagship. If we can disrupt their coordination, they'll be fighting as individuals instead of a unified fleet," Kang finished. "Good. Commander Shin, are your fighters ready?" Commander Shin Ji-hoon reviewed his pilot roster. "All squadrons are standing by. The pilots understand this is a suicide mission, sir. They're ready anyway." Captain Bae Sung-min spoke up from the Lunar Defense Station. "Ground-based weapons are charged and ready. If any of them survive to reach bombardment range, we'll make them pay for every shot." The plan was audacious in its simplicity. Instead of trying to match the Valdorians in a conventional battle they could not win, humanity would turn space combat into chaos. They would use every dirty trick, every desperate tactic, every advantage their creativity could devise. As the enemy fleet approached Mars, the first phase of Operation Silent Thunder began. What appeared to be empty space suddenly filled with human vessels. Ships emerged from behind asteroids, decloaked from sensor shadows, and rose from the surfaces of airless moons. "Sir!" the Valdorian tactical officer called out in alarm. "Multiple contacts appearing throughout the system. Count is over 800 vessels." Kethmore stared at his displays in disbelief. "Impossible. Our intelligence was perfect. Where did all these ships come from?" The answer was both simple and brilliant. Humanity had converted every available vessel, cargo haulers, mining ships, research vessels, even passenger liners, into improvised warships. What they lacked in armor and firepower they made up for in numbers and unpredictability. Captain Nam Dong-hyuk led the first wave of attacks in his converted freighter. To Valdorian sensors, his ship looked like a harmless cargo vessel, right up until it opened fire with concealed weapons that punched through their shields with impossible efficiency. "All squadrons, attack pattern Omega," Nam ordered. "Remember, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to cause chaos." The human ships swarmed the Valdorian formation like angry insects. They used tactics no civilized military would consider: ramming attacks, suicide runs, weapons fired at point-blank range. Many human ships died in those first moments, but they took Valdorian vessels with them. Engineer Yu Minseo watched from her position on Ceres as her carefully placed asteroid mines began their deadly work. Chunks of rock that had drifted harmlessly for months suddenly revealed hidden engines and explosive charges, accelerating toward the enemy fleet at tremendous speed. "Asteroid impacts on multiple ships," reported the Valdorian sensor operator. "How are they controlling the asteroids?" The answer was years of careful preparation. Humanity had turned their entire solar system into a weapon, and now they were using it with devastating effect. Rocks that should have been lifeless debris became guided missiles, each one carrying enough explosive force to cripple a capital ship. Dr. Park's quantum weapons tore through the enemy formation with terrifying efficiency. The exotic energy weapons bypassed conventional shields and armor, striking directly at the molecular structure of enemy vessels. Valdorian ships that had survived 1,000 battles simply came apart under the quantum assault. "Weapons efficiency is incredible," Dr. Park reported to Admiral Kang. "But, sir, we're burning through our exotic matter reserves quickly. We can maintain this rate of fire for maybe 20 more minutes. Then we make those 20 minutes count." Kang replied, "All ships, focus fire on their command vessels. Cut off their coordination." Commander Shin led his fighter squadrons in the most desperate attack in human history. His small craft were hopelessly outgunned by the massive Valdorian ships, but they had advantages the enemy didn't expect. Human pilots could think creatively, adapt instantly, and take risks that would terrify any sane military mind. "Remember your training," Shin told his pilots. "These ships are built for fighting other capital vessels. They're not designed to track small, fast targets making random maneuvers." The fighters dove into the enemy formation like sparks from a forge. They used the Valdorian ships themselves as cover, ducking between the massive hulls and firing at critical systems. When their weapons ran out of ammunition, some pilots simply rammed their fighters into enemy sensor arrays or weapon mounts. On Earth, Colonel Im Young-woo activated the planet's final line of defense. Hidden weapon platforms throughout the orbital space revealed themselves, adding their firepower to the desperate battle. These were not the crude nuclear missiles the Valdorians expected, but advanced energy weapons based on captured alien technology. "All platforms target the largest ships," Im commanded. "We need to bring down those dreadnoughts before they can reach bombardment range." The battle raged across millions of kilometers of space. Human ships fought with a desperation the Valdorians had never encountered. When weapons failed, humans used their ships as battering rams. When engines died, crews manually detonated their reactors to damage nearby enemies. Captain Huang Minho piloted his destroyer in a spiraling attack run against a Valdorian battleship. His vessel was already badly damaged, life support failing, but he pressed the attack anyway. "This is for every world you've enslaved," Huang said as he fired his last torpedo at point-blank range. The explosion tore through both ships, but the Valdorian vessel took critical damage to its main reactor. The psychological impact on the Valdorian fleet was devastating. They had fought hundreds of battles, but always against enemies who fought by recognizable rules. The humans fought like madmen, using tactics that defied military logic. "Sir, morale is dropping throughout the fleet," reported Commander Vextal. "The crews have never seen anything like this. Some captains are requesting permission to withdraw." Admiral Kethmore's face was a mask of fury. "No, we do not retreat from primitives. Signal all ships. Any captain who attempts to withdraw will be executed for cowardice." But fear was spreading through the Valdorian ranks faster than their admiral's threats could contain it. Ships that had seemed invincible were being destroyed by vessels they had dismissed as scrap metal. The humans were using weapons and tactics that shouldn't exist, guided by a tactical brilliance that seemed impossible for such a young race. Dr. Ryu Jae-sung's electronic warfare teams struck at the heart of Valdorian coordination. Using captured communication codes, they flooded enemy networks with false orders and conflicting information. Valdorian ships began firing on each other, confused by the chaos of signals. "Excellent work, Doctor," Admiral Kang said as he watched enemy ships colliding in space. "How long can you maintain the disruption?" As long as our quantum computers hold out, Ryu replied. But sir, they're adapting faster than expected. We have maybe an hour before they isolate our intrusion attempts. Major Song Yunji coordinated the ground-based missile strikes from her bunker beneath Tokyo. The city above was being evacuated, but she remained at her post, directing waves of missiles against the enemy fleet. Target the ships moving toward bombardment position, Song ordered. We can't let them get close enough to fire on the cities. The missiles were primitive by Valdorian standards, but they were numerous and unpredictable. More importantly, they were guided by human intelligence officers who could think creatively about targeting priorities. As the battle entered its second hour, the casualties were mounting on both sides. Humanity had lost over 200 ships, but they had taken twice that number of Valdorians with them. More importantly, they had proven that the invincible empire could be hurt. President Lee Hye-jin watched the battle from her command bunker, her face grim as the reports came in. Millions of her people were fighting for their lives in the vacuum of space, facing odds that Admiral Kethmore stared at the tactical display with growing horror. In less than 3 hours of combat, he had lost nearly half his fleet to what intelligence had called a primitive backwater world. The impossible numbers glowed red on his screens. Over 250 Valdorian ships destroyed or crippled. Commander Vextal, Kethmore said, his voice deadly quiet. Explain to me how insects with chemical rockets have devastated the most powerful fleet in the Empire. Vextal's hands shook as he reviewed the battle reports. Sir, their technology is far more advanced than our scouts reported. They have weapons that bypass our shields entirely, and their tactical coordination is unprecedented. Unprecedented? Kethmore's voice rose to a roar. They are primitives, savages who have barely left their homeworld. This cannot be happening. But it was happening, and across the solar system, human forces prepared for the enemy's inevitable counterattack. Admiral Kang floated in his command center, reviewing casualty reports with grim satisfaction. They had hurt the Valdorians badly, but the cost had been enormous. Losses? Kang asked his staff. Lieutenant Colonel Osiri consulted her datapad. We've lost approximately 40% of our fleet, including most of our converted civilian vessels. Captain Bay's sacrifice with the Cascade bomb was devastating to the enemy, but we've expended nearly all our exotic matter reserves. Dr. Park Soo-jin looked up from her weapons console. The quantum resonance weapons are offline for recalibration. The Valdorians are adapting their shield frequencies. By the time I can compensate, they'll have full protection against our primary weapon system. Kang nodded grimly. The first phase of their plan had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes, but now came the real test. The Valdorians would not underestimate them again. When they attacked next, it would be with their full remaining strength and a burning desire for revenge. Dr. Ryu, Kang continued, what about their command structure? Dr. Ryu Jae-sung shook his head. They've isolated their communication networks. I can still monitor their transmissions, but I can't disrupt them anymore. Sir, they're learning fast. On the Valdorian flagship, Admiral Kethmore was indeed learning. The humans had used surprise, superior tactics, and impossible weapons to devastate his fleet, but he still had over 200 ships, each one powerful enough to crack continents. It was time to end this humiliation. Signal all remaining vessels, Kethmore commanded. Full military formation. We will approach Earth directly and bombard every population center simultaneously. No more games, no more underestimating these humans. We will turn their world into a lifeless rock. Commander Vextal hesitated. Sir, what about the hidden defenses? They still have ships we haven't accounted for. Then we'll destroy them all, Kethmore snarled. Every ship, every station, every weapon they possess. The Empire's reputation depends on absolute victory. We cannot allow word of this setback to reach other worlds. The Valdorian fleet began moving toward Earth in a tight formation designed to maximize their firepower, while minimizing vulnerability to the humans' unconventional tactics. They advanced slowly, methodically, their sensors probing every asteroid and shadow for hidden enemies. In the outer system, Engineer Yu Mincio watched the enemy formation from her position on a disguised weapons platform. Her asteroid mining operation had been converted into humanity's most ambitious defense project, turning the entire asteroid belt into a minefield. "They're being more careful this time," Yu reported to Admiral Kang. "Sweeping everything with active sensors, destroying anything that looks suspicious. They're not going to fall for the same tricks twice." "Then we'll use new tricks," Kang replied. "Activate the Jupiter contingency. It's time to reveal our biggest surprise." Admiral Choi Hae-won received the signal on her flagship hidden in Jupiter's massive storm systems. For months, her fleet had remained concealed in the gas giant's violent atmosphere, waiting for this moment. Now, as the Valdorian fleet passed by, focused entirely on Earth, she led her ships out of hiding. The Jupiter fleet was humanity's ace in the hole, their newest, most advanced vessels, built with technology reverse-engineered from captured alien ships. Unlike the improvised warships that had fought in the first battle, these were purpose-built killing machines designed specifically to fight the Valdorian Empire. "All ships, this is Admiral Choi," she broadcast to her fleet. "For 3 hours, our brothers and sisters have been dying to protect Earth. Now it's our turn. Attack formation Taeguk, show these invaders what human engineering can really accomplish." The Jupiter fleet struck the Valdorian formation from the side like a hammer blow. Choi's ships used weapons the enemy had never seen. Singularity torpedoes that created tiny black holes, plasma cannons that could melt through any armor, and shield disruptors that left enemy vessels completely vulnerable. "What is this?" Kethmore demanded as his sensors registered the new threat. "Where did these ships come from?" His tactical officer's voice was filled with fear. "Unknown, sir. They're using technology. I don't recognize half these weapon signatures, and their formation is perfect. They're coordinating like a single organism." The human ships moved with a precision that stunned the Valdorian commanders. Each vessel knew exactly where every other ship would be, allowing them to coordinate their attacks with deadly efficiency. It was the result of years of training and preparation, guided by the certain knowledge that they would only get one chance to save their world. Captain Huang Min-ho piloted his advanced destroyer in a spiraling attack pattern around a Valdorian battleship. His ship was everything humanity's best engineers could create, fast, maneuverable, and armed with weapons that could punch through any armor. "Target their reactor core," Huang ordered his weapons officer. "Maximum power to the plasma cannons." The pow. Concentrated fire tore through the enemy ship's hull like paper, reaching the central reactor and triggering a catastrophic explosion. The Valdorian battleship broke apart in a ball of nuclear fire, its debris raining down on nearby ships. Major Song Yoonji coordinated the ground-based defense from her new position beneath the Pacific Ocean. The hidden underwater platforms represented humanity's final insurance policy, weapons so powerful they could reach into space and destroy ships in high orbit. "Targets acquired," Song reported as her deep ocean installations locked onto the advancing Valdorian fleet. Firing sequence initiated. Beams of coherent energy lanced up from Earth's oceans, invisible until they struck their targets. Valdorian ships expecting bombardment from space-based weapons had no defense against attacks from the planet's surface. 3 capital ships died in the first volley, their shields useless against weapons fired from below. The battle raged across multiple fronts as humanity's defenders revealed surprise after surprise. Commander Shin Ji-hoon, somehow having survived the destruction of his first squadron, led a new group of fighters in desperate attacks against enemy command ships. These weren't the improvised craft from the first battle, but advanced interceptors, with stealth technology and guided missiles. "Stay in formation," Shin ordered his pilots. "Use the debris fields for cover and hit their sensor arrays. Blind them first, then go for the engines." Dr. Park Soo-jin worked frantically to recalibrate her quantum weapons. The Valdorians had adapted to the original frequency, but she had prepared for this possibility. New exotic matter configurations would create entirely different quantum effects, hopefully bypassing their new defenses. "Quantum resonance weapons back online," Dr. Park reported. "New frequency should punch through their updated shields. But Admiral, this is our last shot. If they adapt again, we're out of exotic matter." Then we make it count, Kang replied. All ships with quantum weapons, focus fire on their flagship. Take down their command structure. The concentrated quantum attack hit Admiral Kethmore's ship like a sledgehammer. The exotic energy bypassed every defense, striking directly at the vessel's molecular structure. Hull plates began to dissolve and entire sections of the massive ship simply vanished into quantum foam. Hull breach on all decks, shouted the Valdorian damage control officer. Sir, we're losing structural integrity. The ship is coming apart. Kethmore gripped his command chair as his flagship shuddered under the impossible assault. Around him, his bridge crew worked desperately to keep their ship functional, but the human weapons were beyond anything in their experience. Sir, we must. Abandon ship, Commander Vextal pleaded. The reactor core is destabilizing. No, Kethmore roared. We do not retreat. We do not surrender. Transfer my command to the secondary flagship. All remaining ships prepare for close-range bombardment. If we cannot defeat them at distance, we'll destroy them at point-blank range. The surviving Valdorian ships, now reduced to fewer than 150 vessels, began a desperate charge toward Earth. They had abandoned all pretense of tactical formation, instead racing to get close enough to devastate the human homeworld before their own destruction. Admiral Kang watched the enemy charge with cold satisfaction. This was exactly what he had been hoping for. All units, fall back to Earth orbit. Let them come to us. Colonel Im, are the orbital defenses ready? Colonel Im Youngwoo smiled grimly from his position on the moon. Every defense platform, every hidden weapon, every trap we've spent years preparing. The space around Earth had become a graveyard. Broken ships drifted in the darkness, their hulls torn open by weapons that should not have existed. Emergency lights flickered through shattered viewports, and the vacuum was filled with debris that had once been the pride of the Valdorian Empire. Admiral Kethmore stood on the bridge of his third flagship, his body wrapped in medical bandages from the quantum weapon attack. Through the viewport, he could see the blue marble of Earth hanging in space like a jewel. It should have been a simple conquest, another red mark on his star charts. Instead, it had become his nightmare. Casualty report, Kethmore demanded, though he dreaded the answer. Commander Vextal consulted his datapad with shaking hands. Sir, we have lost over 350 ships. Our remaining forces number less than 140 vessels, many of them damaged. We have never suffered losses like this in the Empire's history. The numbers were devastating, but Kethmore's pride would not let him accept defeat. Signal all ships. We will reform and attack in waves. Concentrated bombardment on their population centers. We will turn their world into ash. Sir, Vextal said quietly, perhaps we should consider withdrawal. We could return with reinforcements, study their tactics. Kethmore spun on his subordinate with fury. Withdraw? From insects? Do you understand what this means, Vextal? If word of our defeat reaches other worlds, the entire Empire could face rebellion. We cannot allow these humans to live to tell of their victory. But Admiral Kang had no intention of letting any Valdorian escape to spread word of the battle. On his flagship, now showing signs of heavy damage from the prolonged fight, he reviewed the final phase of Operation Silent Thunder with his surviving officers. Status report, Kang ordered. Dr. Park Soo-jin looked exhausted, her uniform stained with coolant from her experimental weapons. Quantum systems are offline. We've expended all our exotic matter reserves. But sir, it worked. Their shields can't adapt to weapons they've never encountered before. Lieutenant Colonel O.C. Ree studied her tactical display. Our losses have been severe. We're down to about 60% of our original strength. But the enemy is in much worse shape. They're trapped in our system with no way out. Engineer Yu Min-seo's voice came through the communication system from her position on Ceres. All asteroid belt defenses are active. The enemy can't retreat through the outer system without running a gauntlet of automated weapons. They're boxed in. Admiral Choi Hae-won's Jupiter fleet had taken heavy casualties, but her ships were still the most advanced in Earth's arsenal. Admiral Kang, my remaining vessels are positioned between the enemy and any possible escape route. Nothing gets past. As Kang nodded with grim satisfaction. The trap was complete. The Valdorian fleet was caught in Earth's solar system with no way out and no hope of reinforcement. Now came the hard part, destroying every single ship to ensure that word of Earth's capabilities never reached the Empire. Open communications to all human forces, Kang ordered. This is Admiral Kang speaking. Phase 3 of Operation Silent Thunder is now in effect. Our mission is simple. No enemy ship leaves this system alive. We will hunt them down one by one if necessary. Dr. Ryu Jae-sung monitored Valdorian communications from his electronic warfare station. Sir, they're trying to send distress signals to the Empire. I'm jamming their long-range transmissions, but they keep changing frequencies. Keep jamming them, Kang replied. Commander Shin, take your remaining fighters and target their communication. Arrays. Make sure they can't call for help. Commander Shin Ji-hoon had somehow survived 3 major engagements, his luck legendary among the human pilots. Understood, Admiral. We'll cut their tongues out before we finish them. The systematic destruction of the Valdorian fleet began with cold, methodical precision. Human ships, many of them showing severe battle damage, closed in on the enemy formation from all directions. This was no longer a desperate defensive battle. It had become an execution. Captain Hwang Min-ho led his destroyer squadron in a flanking attack against the Valdorian left wing. His ship's armor was scorched and pitted, but his weapons still functioned perfectly. Target the command ships first, Hwang ordered. Cut off their coordination and they'll be fighting blind. The attack was devastating. Human vessels, smaller and more maneuverable than their opponents, darted between the massive Valdorian ships like sharks among whales. They targeted engines, weapons systems, and command centers with surgical precision. Major Song Yoon-ji coordinated strikes from Earth's remaining orbital platforms. All ground-based weapons, focus fire on their largest ships. Bring down those dreadnoughts. Beams of energy lanced up from Earth's surface and from hidden bases throughout the solar system. The Valdorians found themselves under attack from every direction. Ships, planets, asteroids, and even what appeared to be empty space as hidden weapons platforms revealed themselves. The psychological impact on the surviving Valdorians was complete. They had entered this system as conquerors, secure in their superiority. Now they were prey, hunted by an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. Sir, reported the Valdorian sensor operator, his voice cracking with fear. We're detecting weapon signatures from over 50 different locations. They've turned their entire system into a fortress. Admiral Kethmore stared at the tactical display, watching his ships die one by one. The humans were not just defeating them, they were systematically destroying every vessel with ruthless efficiency. It was like watching the Empire itself die before his eyes. Commander Vextal, Kethmore said, his voice strangely calm, prepare my personal fighter. If I am to die in this cursed system, I will at least face their admiral in single combat. Perhaps I can restore some honor to this disaster. Vextal stared at his commander in shock. Sir, you can't be serious. Single combat is a primitive concept. We are civilized beings, not barbarians. Are we? Kethmore laughed bitterly. Look around you, Commander. We came here to enslave and slaughter innocents. Perhaps the primitives are more civilized than we are. Captain Nam Dong-hyuk, still somehow alive in his battered freighter, intercepted the transmission and relayed it to Admiral Kang. Sir, the enemy commander is challenging you to single combat. His personal fighter is launching now. Admiral Kang considered the challenge carefully. In the old traditions of warfare, single combat between commanders could end a battle without further bloodshed. But this was not an ordinary battle, and Kethmore was not an ordinary enemy. Lieutenant Colonel O, Kang said, what's your assessment of their remaining forces? Scattered and demoralized, sir. Without their admiral's leadership, they'll likely surrender or attempt individual escapes. Either way, they're no longer a coherent fighting force. Kang made his decision. I'll accept the challenge, but not out of honor or tradition. If I can break their morale completely by defeating their admiral in single combat, we can end this without losing more of our people. Dr. Park looked up from her weapons console. Admiral, I can jury-rig one of our quantum weapons for your fighter. Give you an edge in the battle. No, Kang said firmly. "If I'm going to face him, it will be pilot against pilot, ship against ship. Let him see that even without our advanced weapons, humanity will not yield." Admiral Kang's fighter launched from his flagship, a sleek vessel that represented the best of human engineering. It was smaller than the Valdorian commander's craft, but faster and more maneuverable. More importantly, it was piloted by someone who had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. The two fighters met in the space between the opposing fleets. For a moment, they circled each other like ancient gladiators, their ships' running lights creating patterns in the darkness. "Human Admiral," came Kethmore's voice over the communication channel. "I am Admiral Kethmore of the Valdorian Empire, conqueror of 164 worlds. Before I destroy you, tell me, what madness drives your species to fight so desperately?" Kang's reply was calm and measured. "We fight because we're free. We fight because we choose to. You wouldn't understand. You've spent so long enslaving others that you've forgotten what freedom means." The battle began with Kethmore's ship diving toward Kang's fighter, weapons blazing. The Valdorian craft was larger and more heavily armed, but Kang had advantages his opponent didn't recognize. Human pilots trained differently than their alien counterparts, learning to think creatively and adapt instantly to changing situations. Kang rolled his fighter through a complex evasive pattern, using Earth's gravity well to assist his maneuvers. Kethmore's shots passed harmlessly through space as the human pilot danced between the energy beams. "Stand still and fight," Kethmore roared, frustrated by his opponent's unpredictable movements. "Why?" Kang replied, spinning his fighter in a spiral that brought him behind the Valdorian ship. "You came to our system to destroy us. We didn't invite you to a fair fight." Kang's return fire was precise and devastating. He targeted specific systems on Kethmore's fighter, first the secondary weapons, then the shield generators, finally, the engine components. It was surgical destruction, demonstrating a level of piloting skill that stunned the watching fleets. Throughout the solar system, humans and Valdorians alike watched the duel between their commanders. For the humans, it was a symbol of everything they had been fighting. The silence in space was absolute. Where once 500 Valdorian warships had darkened the void with their presence, now only debris drifted in the solar wind. Twisted metal, cooling plasma, and the frozen remains of an empire's pride scattered across millions of kilometers of space. Admiral Kang floated in his damaged fighter, watching the aftermath of humanity's impossible victory. His ship's systems were failing, life support running on backup power, but he was alive. More importantly, Earth was safe. "All units, sound off," Kang ordered through his failing communication system. "Give me a casualty report." The responses came slowly, voices filled with exhaustion and disbelief. Admiral Choi Hai-wan's Jupiter fleet had been reduced to less than 20 operational ships. Commander Shin Ji-hoon reported that only 5 fighters remained from his original squadron of 60. Major Song Yoon-ji's ground-based platforms had expended nearly all their ammunition. "Admiral," came Dr. Park Soo-jin's voice from the main fleet, "our losses have been severe. We've lost approximately 70% of our ships and nearly half our personnel. But sir, we did it. We actually did it." Engineer Yu Min-seo's report came from the asteroid belt. "Automated systems are still functioning, but most of our hidden platforms are destroyed or out of ammunition. The good news is, there's nothing left for them to fight." Lieutenant Colonel Osiri's tactical assessment was grim but triumphant. "Sir, sensors show no active Valdorian vessels. The entire enemy fleet has been destroyed. Repeat, the entire enemy fleet has been destroyed." "Admiral." Kang allowed himself a moment of satisfaction before reality set in. They had won an incredible victory, but the cost had been enormous. Millions of humans had died defending their home, and the survivors faced an uncertain future. "All ships, begin search and rescue operations," Kang ordered. "Priority goes to our own people, but if you find any Valdorian survivors, take them prisoner. We need to learn everything we can about their empire." Captain Hwang Min-ho's destroyer limped through the debris field, its sensors scanning for survivors. "Admiral, I'm picking up life pods from our ships, but also some Valdorian escape craft. Should we rescue them?" Yes, Kang replied without hesitation. We're not like them. We don't murder helpless survivors. On Earth's surface, President Lee Hae-jin emerged from her underground bunker for the first time in 18 hours. The sky above was filled with the lights of burning debris entering the atmosphere, like a meteor shower made of enemy ships. Cities that had been evacuated were beginning to see their populations return. Madam President, her aide reported, initial casualty estimates are coming in. Military losses are severe, but civilian casualties are lower than projected. The evacuation procedures worked. Lee nodded, her face showing the strain of the longest day in human history. And the enemy? Complete destruction, ma'am. Admiral Kang's forces report total victory. The Valdorian fleet has been annihilated. The words should have brought relief, but President Lee understood the implications. Earth had just announced its presence to a hostile galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. There would be consequences. In the debris field, rescue operations continued around the clock. Human ships pulled their wounded from the wreckage of destroyed vessels, while medical teams worked desperately to save lives that had been preserved by emergency life support systems. Dr. Ryu Jae-sung coordinated the recovery of alien technology from destroyed Valdorian ships. We need to understand their capabilities, he explained to his team. This won't be the last fleet they send. Captain Nam Dong-hyuk, miraculously still alive after surviving the entire battle in his converted freighter, discovered something that chilled him to the bone. His sensors detected a faint power signature from what appeared to be a piece of debris. Admiral Kang, Nam reported, I'm picking up an anomalous reading from grid reference 77 Alpha. It looks like wreckage, but there's definitely a power source. The wreckage was a Valdorian scout ship, its crew of 3 having watched their entire fleet die from hiding. Commander Zekthos, the ship's captain, had been preparing to activate their faster-than-light drive when human ships surrounded his position. Sir, his navigator whispered, they've found us. Multiple human vessels closing on our position. Zekthos stared at his tactical display, knowing that his small ship had no chance against even the damaged human vessels. But he also knew that he carried information that could change the course of the war. Prepare the data core for transmission, Zekthos ordered. If we cannot escape, we can at least warn the Empire about what these humans are capable of. Captain Nam's weapons were trained on the hidden scout ship, but he hesitated to fire. Unknown vessel, this is Captain Nam of the Earth Defense Force. You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender immediately, and you will be treated according to the laws of war. The response came in heavily accented but understandable human language. Human Captain, I am Commander Zekthos. We surrender, but I request the right to speak with your leader. What I have to tell you may prevent a war that will consume the galaxy. Admiral Kang's fighter approached the surrounded scout ship, curious about what information the enemy commander might possess. Commander Zekthos, this is Admiral Kang. You have my attention. Admiral, came the alien's voice, you have achieved something impossible. No one has ever defeated a Valdorian fleet completely, but you must understand this was only one fleet. The Empire has thousands of ships, weapons beyond your imagination, and now they will know that Earth exists. Kang's expression remained calm. Let them come. We'll be ready. Zekthos's laugh was bitter. You don't understand. When word of this defeat reaches the Empire, they will not send another expedition fleet. They will send the Death Fleet, ships designed to crack planets, weapons that can extinguish suns. They will not make the mistake of underestimating you again. How long? Kang asked simply. Perhaps 6 months for the news to reach the capital, another year to assemble the Death Fleet. You have perhaps 18 months before they arrive in overwhelming force. Admiral Kang processed this information carefully, 18 months to prepare for an even larger invasion. But he also realized that humanity now possessed something invaluable, proven Valdorian technology, and more importantly, the knowledge that the invincible Empire could be defeated. Commander Zekthos, Kang said, I'm prepared to offer you and your crew safe passage back to your Empire along with a message. The alien commander was surprised. What message? Tell your leaders that Earth is no longer hiding. We know they exist, we know they're coming, and we'll be ready. More than that, tell them that we're coming for them. Every world they've enslaved, every species they've conquered, every life they've destroyed. We're going to free them all. Dr. Park Soo-jin had been monitoring the conversation from her position on the main fleet. Admiral, are you certain about letting them go? They'll warn the Empire about our capabilities. Yes, Kang replied. Let them warn the Empire. Let them spread the word throughout the galaxy that humanity will no longer tolerate slavery and oppression. Fear can work both ways. The Valdorian scout ship was allowed to depart under human escort to the edge of the solar system. As it engaged its faster-than-light drive and vanished into the void, it carried with it news that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Commander Zekthas's report to the Valdorian High Command was brief, but devastating. The Sol system fleet is completely destroyed. All 500 ships lost. The humans possess advanced weapons and tactical capabilities far beyond our intelligence estimates. Request immediate strategic reassessment of human threat level. But the implications went far beyond military capabilities. Word of the Valdorian defeat spread through the galaxy's underground networks, reaching enslaved worlds and conquered species that had never dared to hope for freedom. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, human slaves who had been captured from frontier colonies heard whispered rumors of Earth's victory. The rebellion began that very day, with workers sabotaging Valdorian equipment and attacking their overseers. In the slave markets of Proxima Centauri, alien merchants spoke in hushed tones about the human madness, a species that would fight to the death rather than surrender. Prices for human slaves dropped overnight as buyers worried about the risk of rebellion. On Earth, the cleanup and reconstruction began immediately. Admiral Choi Hae-won was promoted to oversee the construction of humanity's first true interstellar fleet. We have 18 months to build ships that can take the fight to them, she told her engineering teams. I want humanity's revenge to be swift and terrible. Dr. Park Soo-jin led the effort to reverse engineer Valdorian technology. The captured alien equipment revealed secrets of faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, and defensive systems that would revolutionize human military capabilities. Engineer Yu Min-seo proposed the most ambitious project of all, turning the entire solar system into a fortress. If they come back with a larger fleet, we'll be ready. Every planet, every moon, every asteroid will be armed and waiting. President Lee addressed the world in a broadcast that would be remembered for generations. Today, humanity proved that we will never kneel to oppression. We have paid a terrible price for our freedom, but we have also shown the galaxy that Earth is not a victim. We are